Before we dive into today's story, drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. And don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10 at the end. Now, let's begin. The autumn rain hammered against the windows of Celestia, Manhattan's most exclusive rooftop restaurant, as 26-year-old Emma Sullivan checked her phone for the 5th time in as many minutes. Table 12. That's what her best friend Rachel had texted. The blind date Rachel had set up was supposed to be here at 7 sharp, and Emma was exactly on time, clutching her vintage clutch like a lifeline as the hostess guided her through the dimly lit space filled with crystal chandeliers and the soft murmur of New York's elite. Emma's heart hammered as she approached table 12. She'd agreed to this setup, reluctantly, only because Rachel had been relentless, insisting that Emma needed to get back out there after her disaster of a breakup 6 months ago. The advertising agency where Emma worked as a junior copywriter barely paid enough to cover her studio apartment in Brooklyn, let alone fancy dinners at places like this. But Rachel had promised her date was successful but down to earth, someone who valued personality over pedigree. The man at table 12 had his back to her, broad shoulders in what looked like an expensive navy suit, dark hair styled with casual perfection. Emma took a steadying breath and smoothed down her burgundy dress, the nicest thing in her closet, bought on sale 2 years ago, but still elegant enough for tonight. "Hi, I'm Emma," she said brightly, sliding into the chair across from him. "Sorry if I kept you waiting. The subway was a nightmare with the rain and—" The man looked up from his phone, and Emma's words died in her throat. This wasn't the friendly accountant or marketing manager Rachel had described. This was someone else entirely. Sharp cheekbones, ice blue eyes that could freeze oceans, and an expression of cool assessment that made her feel like a balance sheet being evaluated for investment potential. "You're late," he said, his voice deep and commanding, the kind of voice that made boardrooms go silent. "I don't tolerate lateness." Emma blinked, momentarily thrown. "I'm actually exactly on time. 7 o'clock, just like." "I said 7:30. The reservation is under Kane." He set down his phone with precise control, giving her his full attention in a way that felt both flattering and terrifying. Though I suppose punctuality is relative depending on one's priorities. Something was very wrong here. Emma's mind raced. Kane? Rachel had said her date's name was David something. David Chen, an accountant from Queens who enjoyed hiking and classic movies. This man was definitely not David Chen. "I think there's been a mistake," Emma started, but he cut her off smoothly. "If you're having second thoughts about our arrangement, now is the time to say so. I don't have patience for games." "Arrangement? What arrangement?" The man's eyes narrowed slightly, the only crack in his perfectly controlled facade. "Don't insult my intelligence. Your matchmaker was very clear about the terms. 6 months, public appearances as needed, full compensation as discussed. Unless you're attempting to renegotiate?" Horror and fascination warred in Emma's chest. This gorgeous, terrifying stranger thought she was someone else. Someone who'd agreed to some kind of arrangement that sounded suspiciously like... What? Exactly? Before she could process it further, a waiter appeared with champagne. "Compliments of the house, Mr. Kane." "Shall I bring the tasting menu?" Mr. Kane. The name triggered a memory. Kane Industries. Emma had written copy for a competitor's campaign last year and had researched the market leaders. Kane Industries was a tech empire worth billions, and if this was that Kane, she was sitting across from one of the most powerful men in New York. "Yes, thank you," Kane said dismissively to the waiter before returning his attention to Emma. "As I was saying, the terms are non-negotiable. You'll accompany me to business functions, family events, maintain discretion about the nature of our arrangement, and in return, you'll receive the compensation we agreed upon." Emma should have corrected him immediately. should have explained the mix-up, apologized, and fled to find her actual blind date who was probably wondering where she was. But something stopped her. Maybe it was the way Kane looked at her like she was a puzzle he was determined to solve. Maybe it was the sheer absurdity of the situation. Or maybe it was the devil on her shoulder, whispering that this was the most interesting thing to happen to her in years. "Remind me of the compensation," she heard herself say. "I want to make sure we're on the same page." Kane's lips curved into something that might have been a smile on a less controlled face. $50,000 per month for 6 months, plus a wardrobe allowance and coverage of all expenses related to your role. At the conclusion of our arrangement, a severance payment of $100,000, provided you fulfilled all contractual obligations. Emma's vision blurred slightly. $400,000. That was more money than she'd make in 5 years at her current salary. That could pay off her student loans, help her sister with her medical school tuition, maybe even let Emma finally pursue freelance writing instead of churning out soulless ad copy. And what exactly would my role entail? The question came out steadier than she felt. Presenting as my girlfriend to discourage unwanted attention from potential matches my family keeps pushing on me. Attending galas, dinners, the occasional weekend event, being charming, intelligent, and convincing in public. In private, we maintain our separate lives. A fake relationship. A mutually beneficial arrangement, he corrected. I get my family and business associates off my back about settling down. You get financial security. No emotions, no complications, no messy entanglements. This was insane. Emma knew she should walk away. But she found herself thinking about her sister Sophie's tuition bills, about her own mountain of debt, about the freedom that kind of money could buy. "I have some conditions," Emma said, shocked by her own boldness. For the first time, Kane looked genuinely interested, rather than just assessing. "Go on. I want a written contract detailing everything. Every expectation, every boundary, every dollar. And I want veto power over any event that conflicts with my work schedule or personal ethics." Kane leaned back in his chair, studying her with those piercing blue eyes. "You're more thorough than I expected. I appreciate that. Anything else? I want to know your first name. If we're going to convince people we're dating, I should probably know what to call you." "Nathaniel. Nathaniel Kane." He extended his hand across the table. "And you are?" Emma hesitated for just a fraction of a second before taking his hand. His grip was firm, warm, sending an unexpected jolt through her system. "Emma Sullivan." "Well, Emma Sullivan, do we have a deal?" Every rational cell in Emma's brain screamed at her to say no, to explain the mistake, to run back to her normal, safe, predictable life. But when she opened her mouth, what came out was, "Yes, we have a deal." The champagne arrived, and Nathaniel raised his glass with the precision of someone who'd made 1,000 business toasts. "To profitable partnerships." Emma clinked her glass against his, the crystal singing softly. "To not getting caught." Something flickered in Nathaniel's eyes. Might have been amusement or approval. As they began the elaborate tasting menu, Emma's phone buzzed insistently in her clutch. Rachel, no doubt, wondering where she was, and probably David Chen, the real blind date, confused about being stood up. "Problem?" Nathaniel asked, noticing her distraction. "My actual blind date is probably wondering where I am," Emma admitted, then froze, realizing her mistake. Nathaniel set down his fork with careful deliberation. "Your actual blind date. I should explain. I'm not whoever you were supposed to meet tonight. I came here for a different setup, sat at the wrong table, and then you started talking about arrangements and money, and I just—" Emma trailed off, watching his expression shift from confusion to something harder to read. "Let me understand this correctly. You're not Isabel Thornton from the Manhattan Matchmakers Agency? I'm Emma Sullivan, from Brooklyn." and I write advertising copy for a living. Or at least I did, until about 5 minutes ago when I apparently agreed to become a fake girlfriend for hire. Silence stretched between them. Emma waited for the explosion, the angry dismissal, the humiliation of being thrown out of Manhattan's fanciest restaurant. Instead, Nathaniel began to laugh. It started as a low chuckle and built into genuine amusement that transformed his entire face, making him look younger and infinitely more approachable. "This is unexpected," he said finally, wiping his eyes. "So you crashed my arranged meeting, decided to negotiate better terms than my actual hire, and committed to a 6-month deception without knowing anything about me beyond my last name?" When he put it like that, Emma felt heat flood her cheeks. "It sounds completely insane when you say it out loud. It is completely insane." Nathaniel's smile lingered. "I should send you away and find the actual woman I hired. But I have to admit, your audacity is refreshing. Everyone in my world is so calculated, so careful. You just dove in head first. Is that a polite way of calling me reckless and stupid? It's a way of saying I'm intrigued." Nathaniel leaned forward, his gaze intense. "Here's what I propose. We continue with the arrangement as discussed, but with full transparency about who you actually are. You're more articulate than I expected Isabel to be, and frankly, the fact that you're not a professional escort makes this more believable." Emma choked on her champagne. "Escort? You hired an escort? A high-end companion service. Very discreet. Very professional. My assistant arranged it when I got tired of my mother's matchmaking attempts. He said it so matter-of-factly, like he was discussing a catering order. And you think I'm a better option than a professional? Professionals are too polished. They perform rather than inhabit a role. You, on the other hand, have authenticity. You're rough around the edges in a way that's charming, rather than calculated." Emma wasn't sure if she'd been complimented or insulted. "I'm beginning to understand why you needed to hire a girlfriend." Ouch, but Nathaniel smiled. "Fair point. I've been told my people's skills need work. By whom? A diplomat trying to prevent an international incident? By my younger sister, usually right before she throws something at my head. The image of this controlled, commanding man dodging projectiles from a sibling made Emma laugh despite herself. You have a sister? 2, actually. Olivia and Charlotte. Both of whom will be at the family dinner this Saturday, which would be your first official appearance." "This Saturday? As in 5 days from now? Is that a problem?" Emma thought about her weekend plans, which usually involved laundry, Netflix, and eating takeout in her pajamas. "I suppose I can clear my schedule." "Excellent. My assistant will send you the contract tomorrow, along with details for our shopping trip." "Shopping trip?" Nathaniel gestured to her dress with a look that was more analytical than critical. "No offense, but you'll need appropriate attire for the events we'll be attending. Consider it part of the wardrobe allowance." Emma looked down at her burgundy dress, which had felt so elegant an hour ago and now seemed shabby under his scrutiny. "What's wrong with what I'm wearing?" "Nothing, for a casual dinner. But my mother's dinner parties require something more formal. Think, evening gowns and cocktail dresses, designer labels, the kind of armor the Manhattan elite wear to battle." "Armor. That's a cheerful way to describe meeting your family. You'll understand when you meet my mother. She could negotiate a peace treaty 1 minute and destroy your confidence with a single raised eyebrow the next. You're really selling this experience." "I believe in informed consent." Nathaniel's expression sobered. "This won't be easy, Emma. My family is judgmental, my business associates are sharks, and the media watches everything I do. If you're having second thoughts, now is the time to walk away." Emma considered it. This was her exit ramp, her chance to return to normal life and forget this surreal evening ever happened. But then she thought about Sophie's upcoming tuition bill, about her own crushing student loans, about the freedom that $400,000 represented. "I'm not walking away," she said firmly, "but I need you to promise me something." "What's that?" "If this arrangement ever stops being mutually beneficial, if either of us wants out, we end it cleanly. No drama, no manipulation, just a professional dissolution of our agreement." Nathaniel extended his hand again. "You have my word." As Emma shook his hand for the second time that night, she had the distinct feeling she was diving off a cliff with no idea what waited at the bottom. But for the first time in years, she felt truly, terrifyingly alive. The rest of dinner passed in a blur of exquisite food and increasingly easy conversation. Nathaniel was still formal, still controlled, but Emma caught glimpses of sharp wit beneath his corporate exterior. He asked about her work, seemed genuinely interested in her writing ambitions, and didn't flinch when she admitted she'd never been to half the restaurants or venues he named. "We'll fix that," he said simply. "Part of making this convincing is ensuring you're comfortable in these environments. So you're going to give me a crash course in being rich? I'm going to give you the tools to navigate my world without feeling like an imposter." That's surprisingly thoughtful for a man who ordered a fake girlfriend like takeout. Nathaniel's lips twitched. "I'm full of surprises." As the waiter brought dessert, a chocolate confection that looked too beautiful to eat, Emma's phone buzzed again. This time she checked it, finding a string of increasingly worried texts from Rachel. "I need to handle this," Emma said apologetically. "My friend who set up the actual blind date is panicking. What will you tell her?" "The truth, minus the insane part about agreeing to be your paid companion. I'll say I met someone else. Not entirely a lie." Emma stepped away from the table to call Rachel, who answered on the first ring with a barrage of worried questions. Emma explained she'd met someone at the restaurant, that David seemed nice but she'd felt a connection with someone else, and that she was sorry for the confusion. Rachel, romantic that she was, squealed with delight and demanded details Emma couldn't possibly provide. When Emma returned to the table, Nathaniel was settling the bill with a black credit card that probably had no limit. "Everything handled? For now. Though she's going to want to meet you eventually. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it." Nathaniel stood, helping Emma with her chair in a gesture that seemed automatic rather than calculated. "My driver will take you home." The sleek black car that waited outside Celestia was unlike anything Emma had ever ridden in. Leather seats softer than her bed, ambient lighting, and a privacy screen that separated them from the driver. Nathaniel sat beside her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something subtle and expensive that matched everything else about him. "Where in Brooklyn?" he asked. "Williamsburg, near the waterfront." Emma felt suddenly self-conscious about her modest neighborhood. "It's not fancy, but it's home. I'm not judging your address, Emma. Your entire existence is judgment. You literally evaluated me like a business acquisition over dinner." "Fair point." Nathaniel's phone buzzed, and he glanced at it with a frown. "My mother. Asking if I'm bringing anyone to Saturday's dinner. What are you going to tell her?" "That I'm bringing my girlfriend." He looked up from his phone. "Unless you've changed your mind in the last 20 minutes? Still terrifyingly committed to this insanity. Good, because I should warn you, my mother is going to interrogate you like a hostile witness. She'll want to know everything about your background, your family, your intentions toward her son. What should I tell her? As much of the truth as possible. It's easier to maintain a deception when it's built on facts." Nathaniel pocketed his phone. "Tell her about your work, your sister, your life. Just omit the part about our financial arrangement. So lie by omission." "Precisely." Emma watched the city lights blur past the window, processing the enormity of what she'd agreed to. Can I ask you something? Of course. Why hire someone for this instead of just dating for real? You're attractive, successful, presumably not a serial killer. Finding an actual girlfriend shouldn't be that difficult. Nathaniel was quiet for a long moment. Dating requires emotional availability I don't have. Every relationship becomes a negotiation, every partner an eventual disappointment. This way, the terms are clear from the start. That's incredibly cynical. That's incredibly honest. My parents had what looked like a perfect marriage from the outside. Charity galas, society pages, beautiful family photos behind closed doors. It was strategic warfare. I learned early that romance is just another transaction dressed up in pretty lies. Emma heard the pain beneath his clinical tone. Not all relationships are like that. Perhaps, but I've never witnessed evidence to the contrary. Nathaniel looked at her directly. What about you? What's your damage? Excuse me? Everyone has damage. What's yours? Emma bristled at the blunt question, but found herself answering honestly. I spent 3 years with someone who kept promising we'd build a life together while actually building a life with someone else. Found out about her when she posted engagement photos to her social media. Her? Her. I don't discriminate in my terrible taste in partners. Hence your friend setting you up on blind dates. Hence my agreeing to impersonate a billionaire's girlfriend for money. Clearly, my judgment hasn't improved. Nathaniel actually smiled. Or perhaps it's gotten more interesting. The car pulled up outside Emma's building, a converted warehouse with trendy coffee shops on the ground floor and tiny apartments above. Nathaniel looked up at the brick facade with analytical interest. This is me, Emma said, suddenly feeling the awkwardness of the evening's end. So, I'll see you Saturday? Friday, actually. We need to go shopping for appropriate attire, and my assistant will need to brief you on my family dynamics. I'll have a car pick you up at your office at 5. You know where I work? I know very little about you, which is a problem we'll need to remedy. Send me your office address, along with your sister's university information. Emma's stomach tightened. Why do you need information about Sophie? Because if anyone investigates our relationship, they'll look into your family. I need to know what they'll find. Nathaniel's voice softened slightly. I'm not going to hurt your sister, Emma. I just need to be prepared. It made sense, but Emma still felt protective unease. Fine. I'll send everything tomorrow. Thank you. Nathaniel looked like he wanted to say something else, then seemed to think better of it. Good night, Emma. Good night, Nathaniel. Emma climbed out of the car and didn't look back until she was inside her building. When she finally glanced out the window, the black car was still there, waiting until she was safely inside before pulling away. The gesture felt oddly protective for someone who claimed emotional unavailability. Her apartment felt especially small and shabby after the evening's luxury. Emma collapsed on her threadbare couch, her mind spinning. Had she really just agreed to become a fake girlfriend for hire? Had she really negotiated terms with one of New York's most powerful billionaires over a tasting menu? Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Contract will be sent tomorrow morning. Review carefully and send questions to my assistant. MK below that, another text. You were impressive tonight. I think this arrangement will work well for both of us. Emma stared at the message, trying to reconcile the controlled businessman with the man who'd laughed at her audacity. Nathaniel Kane was a puzzle wrapped in expensive suits and emotional barriers, and she'd just signed up for 6 months of trying to appear convincingly in love with him. What could possibly go wrong? The next morning, Emma's inbox contained a 30-page contract from Kane Industries' legal department. She read through it over terrible office coffee, her eyes widening at the meticulous detail. Every aspect of their arrangement was spelled out in precise legal language: compensation schedules, appearance requirements, confidentiality clauses, and termination conditions. There was also a schedule of upcoming events: the family dinner Saturday, a charity gala the following week, a business conference in 2 weeks that would require an overnight stay. Emma's normal life of deadline stress and subway commutes suddenly felt very far away. "You look like you're reading your own execution warrant," said Marcus, her cubicle neighbor and work friend. He leaned over to peer at her screen. "What is that, a mortgage contract?" Emma quickly minimized the window. "Just some legal stuff. Nothing interesting." "Emma Sullivan handling legal documents? Did you finally sue that coffee shop that keeps spelling your name Emma?" "Not yet, but it's on my list." Emma forced a smile. "Hey, random question. If you were dating someone really successful, like really successful, what would you want to know about them before meeting their family?" Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Is this about the blind date Rachel set up?" "I thought that was tonight." "It was last night. Long story. But hypothetically, I'd want to know their family dynamics, any topics to avoid, and whether I need to pretend to like caviar or golf or whatever rich people pretend to enjoy." Marcus grinned. "Why? Did you meet a secret millionaire?" "Billionaire, actually," Emma muttered before she could stop herself. "What? Nothing. Forget I said anything." Emma returned to the contract, trying to ignore Marcus's curious stare. At 5 o'clock, her phone buzzed with a text. "Car is waiting outside." Emma gathered her things, very aware of Marcus watching her leave. Outside, the same black car from last night waited, drawing curious looks from her coworkers leaving the building. The driver opened the door, and Emma slid inside to find Nathaniel already there, jacket off, tie loosened, looking at his tablet with focused intensity. "Good evening," he said without looking up. "How was work?" "Surreal. I spent the day reading a contract for a fake relationship while pretending to write ad copy about organic yogurt." Nathaniel glanced up, almost smiling. "Did you have questions about the contract?" "About 300. But my main one is, what happens if I screw this up? If your family doesn't believe we're really together, then we adjust our approach until they do believe it." Nathaniel set aside his tablet. "Emma, I didn't choose you because you're perfect for this role. I chose you because your imperfection makes it believable. Just be yourself, and we'll navigate the rest together." The shopping trip was an exercise in culture shock. Nathaniel took Emma to boutiques where there were no price tags and sales associates who looked like runway models. She tried on dresses that cost more than her monthly rent, while Nathaniel sat in elegant chairs, offering opinions with the same analytical focus he probably applied to business deals. "Too formal," he said to a black gown. "Too casual," to a cocktail dress. "Perfect," to a midnight blue dress that made Emma feel like a different person entirely. "I can't accept this," Emma protested, looking at the reflection that barely seemed like herself. "This dress probably costs more than my car." "You don't have a car." "Exactly my point." Nathaniel stood, coming to stand behind her in the mirror. His height made her feel delicate, protected. "The dress is an investment in our arrangement. You need to look the part, and this achieves that beautifully." Their eyes met in the reflection, and Emma felt a flutter of something dangerous. This was a business arrangement, she reminded herself firmly. The way Nathaniel was looking at her, with appreciation and something else she couldn't quite name, was part of the performance. "We'll take this one and the emerald dress," Nathaniel told the sales associate, "and shoes to match both." 2 hours later, Emma emerged with shopping bags containing more clothes than she'd bought in the last 2 years combined. Nathaniel had also insisted on jewelry, saying his girlfriend wouldn't wear costume pieces to family events. "This is too much," Emma said as they settled back in the car. I feel like Pretty Woman, minus the whole prostitution thing. That's a romantic comedy, and this is a business arrangement, Nathaniel replied, but his lips twitched. Though I suppose there are similarities. Great. I'm living in a rom-com written by corporate lawyers. Could be worse. Could be a tragedy. Emma studied his profile. You're different when we're alone. Less CEO. More almost human. Almost human. That's generous. I'm feeling generous after you bought me dresses that cost more than a semester of college. Nathaniel turned to look at her directly. Can I ask you something personal, as opposed to all the very impersonal shopping we just did? Your sister's medical school tuition. The loans you're paying off. Is that the only reason you agreed to this? Emma considered lying, maintaining the professional distance their contract specified. But something about the genuine curiosity in his eyes made her answer honestly. Mostly. But also because for 3 years, I made myself small for someone who never really saw me. This arrangement, as weird as it is, lets me step into a bigger life without having to shrink myself to fit someone else's expectations. Nathaniel was quiet for a long moment. That's remarkably self-aware. That's therapy talking. I've been working through my damage, as you so delicately put it. Good, because Saturday night, you'll need to be confident and unapologetic. My family will try to find weaknesses. Comforting. Any other cheerful warnings? My mother will ask invasive questions about our relationship timeline. My father will assess your financial background. My sisters will either adore you or destroy you, depending on their mood. And you wonder why you needed to hire companionship. I don't wonder. I fully understand. Back at her apartment, Emma hung the new dresses in her tiny closet, trying to wrap her mind around the surreal turn her life had taken. Her phone rang with a video call from Sophie, whose bright smile filled the screen. Em, I haven't heard from you in days. How's life in the ad world? Interesting, Emma said carefully. How's med school? Exhausting. I have an exam Monday that I'm definitely going to fail, and my study group is basically surviving on caffeine and panic. Sophie's smile dimmed slightly. I got the tuition bill for next semester. It's brutal. Guilt twisted in Emma's stomach. She'd been helping Sophie as much as she could, but her salary barely covered her own expenses. About that, I might have some extra money coming in soon. Emma, no. You're already doing too much. I can take out more loans. Actually, I got a side gig. Good money. Totally legitimate. I'll be able to help more. Sophie's expression shifted to suspicion. What kind of side gig pays that well? Please tell me you're not doing something illegal. I'm not doing anything illegal. Just consulting work. For a tech company. It wasn't entirely a lie. She was consulting on how to appear like a convincing girlfriend, and Nathaniel did run a tech company. Emma hated lying to her sister, but the truth was too complicated to explain. They talked for another hour, Sophie filling Emma in on hospital rotations and terrible cafeteria food, Emma carefully editing her stories about work to avoid mentioning mysterious billionaires or contract relationships. When they finally hung up, Emma felt the weight of the deception she'd taken on. Her phone buzzed with another text from Nathaniel. My assistant will send you briefing materials on my family. Read carefully. This is your final chance to walk away before Saturday. Emma stared at the message. She could still back out, return the dresses, go back to her normal life of struggle and stress. But then she thought about Sophie's tuition bills, about the freedom that $400,000 represented, about the chance to finally step into a bigger version of herself. She typed back, not walking away. Send the briefing. The response came immediately. Brave or foolish? Time will tell which. Why not both? Indeed. Good night, Emma. Good night, Nathaniel. Emma spent Friday night studying the briefing materials like she was preparing for a final exam. Nathaniel's family history read like a dynasty novel. Old money combined with new tech wealth, political connections, charity boards, and enough interpersonal drama to fuel a television series. His mother, Catherine Kane, came from Boston aristocracy and ran the family's philanthropic foundation with an iron fist wrapped in designer gloves. His father, Richard Kane, had built Kane Industries from a small software company into a tech empire before handing the reins to Nathaniel 5 years ago. The sisters, Olivia and Charlotte, were both successful in their own rights, Olivia as a gallery owner and Charlotte as a human rights lawyer. Emma tried to memorize names, relationships, potential conversational topics. By midnight, her head was swimming with information, and she collapsed into bed with anxiety dreams about showing up naked to a dinner party. Saturday arrived too quickly. Emma spent the morning having a minor crisis about what to wear, eventually settling on the midnight blue dress Nathaniel had chosen. She did her own hair and makeup, not quite achieving the polish of the boutique stylists, but respectable enough. At 6:30, the car arrived. Emma took a deep breath, grabbed her small clutch, and headed downstairs. Nathaniel was waiting inside the car, devastating in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her entire new wardrobe. "You look beautiful," he said, and the compliment sounded genuine rather than perfunctory. "You look terrified," Emma replied, noting the tension in his shoulders. "Perceptive. I hate these dinners. Then why have them?" "Because family obligation is stronger than personal preference." Nathaniel reached over and took her hand, the gesture surprising her. "We should probably get comfortable with physical contact. My mother will notice if we're awkward together." Emma's heart kicked up at the warmth of his hand enveloping hers. "Good point. So, are we the kind of couple that holds hands? Sits close? What's our affection level? Comfortable, but not excessive. Genuine affection without being inappropriate for family dinner. You've really thought this through. I think everything through." Emma squeezed his hand gently. "Maybe that's your problem." Nathaniel looked down at their joined hands, something unreadable in his expression. "Perhaps it is." The Kane family estate in Connecticut was not a house. It was a statement. Sprawling colonial architecture, manicured gardens despite the autumn chill, and enough square footage to house a small village. Emma tried not to gawk as they pulled up the circular drive, but her internal monologue was screaming about wealth she'd only seen in movies. "Breathe," Nathaniel said quietly, still holding her hand. "They're just people. People with a house that has actual columns." "Fair point." Nathaniel helped her out of the car, his hand settling naturally at the small of her back as they walked toward the entrance. "Remember, as much truth as possible. You're a copywriter. You have a sister in medical school. We met at a restaurant. Everything else, just follow my lead." The door opened before they could knock, revealing a woman in her mid-50s who looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine spread on elegant aging. Catherine Kane had silver blonde hair swept into a perfect chignon, sharp cheekbones, and eyes the same ice blue as her son's. "Nathaniel, darling." She kissed his cheeks with European precision before turning that assessing gaze on Emma. And this must be the mysterious Emma we've heard absolutely nothing about. "Mother. This is Emma Sullivan." "Emma. My mother, Catherine Kane." Emma extended her hand, but Catherine pulled her into a perfumed embrace instead. "We're not formal with family, dear. Come in. Come in. Everyone's dying to meet you." The interior was even more intimidating than the exterior. Museum-quality art on the walls, antique furniture that probably required its own insurance policy, and enough fresh flowers to stock a florist shop. Emma felt completely out of her depth. Emma. A woman about Emma's age bounded up, all wild curly hair and bright energy. wearing a designer dress with sneakers in deliberate contrast. I'm Olivia, the fun sister. You must be either incredibly brave or slightly insane to date this one. She jerked a thumb at Nathaniel. Little of both, Emma replied, liking Olivia immediately. She has self-awareness. That's promising. A taller, more serious woman appeared, elegant in understated black. Charlotte Kane. I'm the sister who asks uncomfortable questions, so prepare yourself. Looking forward to it, Emma lied. Richard Kane emerged from what looked like a library, tall and distinguished with silver hair and the same assessing intelligence as his son. Emma. Welcome. Nathaniel has been uncharacteristically mysterious about you. I value privacy, Nathaniel said smoothly, his hand still protective at Emma's back. Privacy or secrecy? Catherine asked with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Come, dinner is ready. We can interrogate Emma properly over food. The dining room could have hosted a state dinner. Emma found herself seated across from Charlotte, with Olivia to her left and Nathaniel to her right. Catherine and Richard held court at either end of the long table, and Emma felt like she was on trial rather than at a family dinner. So, Emma, Catherine began as the first course was served. Tell us about yourself. Nathaniel has been frustratingly vague. Emma took a steadying breath. I'm a copywriter at a small advertising agency in Manhattan. I grew up in Pennsylvania, studied creative writing and business in college, and moved to New York 5 years ago. Creative writing, Richard noted. That's an unusual pairing with business. My father insisted I have something practical to fall back on. Turns out, he was right. Wise man, your father, Richard said approvingly. He passed away when I was in college, Emma said quietly. But yes, he was wise. Catherine's expression softened almost imperceptibly. I'm sorry for your loss. And your mother? Also passed. Cancer when I was 23. It's just me and my younger sister now. Sophie's in medical school, Nathaniel added, his hand finding Emma's under the table, offering silent support. At Columbia. Impressive, Charlotte said. That's a demanding program. She's brilliant. Much smarter than me. Emma relaxed slightly, grateful for a topic she could discuss genuinely. She wants to specialize in pediatric oncology, actually inspired by our mother's treatment. Turning tragedy into purpose, Catherine observed. That shows character. The conversation flowed more easily after that, shifting to Emma's work, her thoughts on various topics, her interests outside of work. Nathaniel's sisters were warm and engaging. His father asked intelligent questions, and even Catherine seemed to thaw slightly as the evening progressed. How did you two meet? Olivia asked over the main course, her eyes twinkling with romantic curiosity. Nathaniel's been so secretive about it. Emma and Nathaniel exchanged a quick glance. They'd rehearsed this in the car. At Celestia, actually, Emma said, sticking as close to the truth as possible. I was there for a dinner meeting, sat at the wrong table, and there was Nathaniel looking like he'd just sentenced someone to corporate death. Nathaniel's lips twitched. She wasn't entirely wrong. I'd just finished a difficult call. And somehow you went from wrong table to dating? Charlotte's tone was skeptical, but not unkind. She was refreshingly honest, Nathaniel said, looking at Emma with an expression that seemed almost genuine. Most people in my world are so calculated. Emma just said exactly what she was thinking. I called him arrogant, Emma added. And I appreciated the accuracy. Nathaniel's smile was real this time. Love at first insult, Olivia sighed happily. That's very rom-com of you. It wasn't love at first sight, Emma said carefully. More like interest at first collision. And when did interest become more? Catherine asked, her tone casual but her eyes sharp. Nathaniel answered before Emma could. When I realized I kept looking for excuses to see her again. when work meetings felt like interruptions instead of priorities, when I started actually looking forward to Saturday nights instead of just enduring them. The table went quiet. Emma stared at Nathaniel, stunned by the vulnerability in his admission. Even if it was performance, it was an incredibly convincing one. "Well," Catherine said finally, something like approval in her voice. "It's about time something made you look beyond spreadsheets." The rest of dinner passed in warmer conversation. Nathaniel's family was formidable but not unkind, and Emma found herself actually enjoying their company. Olivia invited her to a gallery showing, Charlotte asked about her writing ambitions, and even Richard seemed to warm to her. As they were leaving, Catherine pulled Emma aside while Nathaniel said goodbye to his father. "A word of advice, my dear." Catherine's voice was low but firm. "My son has spent his entire life building walls. If you're serious about him, you'll need to be patient while he learns to let you in." Emma's throat tightened with guilt at the deception. "I understand." "And Emma, I've seen plenty of women chase Nathaniel for his money or status. You're the first one who looks at him like he's interesting, rather than just useful. Don't lose that." The car ride back to the city was quiet. Emma stared out at the passing darkness, processing the evening's revelations. Nathaniel's family wasn't what she'd expected. They were sharp and intimidating, yes, but also warm in their own complicated way. "You were perfect tonight," Nathaniel said finally, breaking the silence. "Your mother gave me advice about being patient with your walls." Nathaniel's jaw tightened. "She shouldn't have put that on you. Was she wrong? About the walls?" A long pause. "No, she wasn't wrong." Emma turned to face him in the dim light. "What you said at dinner, about looking for excuses to see me, about work feeling like an interruption, was any of that true?" Nathaniel met her eyes, and for a moment, his careful control slipped. More than it should be, considering our arrangement. The admission hung between them. Dangerous and electric. Emma's heart hammered as she processed what he was saying. "Nathaniel, I know, this is supposed to be professional, but somewhere between the contract negotiations and tonight, the lines started blurring." He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. "I don't know how to do this, Emma. How to maintain professional distance when I genuinely enjoy your company." Emma's breath caught. "Maybe we don't have to maintain distance. Maybe we just see where this goes. That's not what the contract says. Forget the contract for a second. What do you want?" Nathaniel looked at her like she was a problem he couldn't solve, a variable that didn't fit his carefully constructed equations. "I want things I don't know how to want. I want to call you in the middle of the day just to hear your voice. I want to know what makes you laugh, what you dream about, what you look like first thing in the morning. Those aren't business questions. No, they're not." Nathaniel's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "We have 6 months of this arrangement. What happens if I spend those 6 months falling for you, and then we're contractually obligated to walk away?" Emma felt tears prick her eyes at the raw vulnerability in his question. "Then we renegotiate the contract." "It's not that simple." "Why not?" "Because I don't know how to do real, Emma. I only know transactions and terms. What if I hurt you because I don't know any better?" Emma reached over and took his hand, threading their fingers together. "What if you don't? What if you're more capable of real than you think?" Nathaniel looked down at their joined hands, his thumb tracing patterns on her palm. "Your faith in me is either inspiring or dangerously misguided. Time will tell which." He almost smiled. "You're using my words against me. Learning from the best." The car pulled up outside Emma's building, but neither of them moved to get out. The tension between them felt thick enough to touch, possibility and fear tangled together. "Emma, I need you to understand something." Nathaniel's voice was serious now. "If we cross this line, If we make this arrangement into something real, there's no going back. My world will consume you. The media, the scrutiny, the constant pressure. It's not a fairy tale. I'm not looking for a fairy tale. I'm looking for something honest. Even if honest is complicated and messy. Especially if it's complicated and messy. Nathaniel studied her face like he was memorizing it. Then, slowly, deliberately, he leaned forward and kissed her. It was gentle, questioning, nothing like the commanding CEO, but everything like a man taking a terrifying leap. Emma kissed him back, her hand coming up to cup his jaw. For a moment, the contract didn't exist. There was only Nathaniel, vulnerable and real, and the electric feeling of possibility. When they broke apart, Nathaniel's eyes held wonder and fear in equal measure. This is insane. You keep saying that. Because it keeps being true. But he smiled, genuine and unguarded. Good night, Emma. Good night, Nathaniel. Emma floated up to her apartment, her lips still tingling from the kiss. This was supposed to be a simple business arrangement. Get paid, play a part, walk away after 6 months with enough money to change her life. But somewhere along the way, Nathaniel Kane had stopped being a client and started being someone she couldn't stop thinking about. Her phone buzzed as she was getting ready for bed. I'm breaking all my own rules with you. Emma smiled and typed back, good. Your rules needed breaking. Sleep well, Emma. You too. The next week passed in a blur. Emma went to work, wrote copy about products she didn't care about, and counted down the hours until she'd see Nathaniel again. They had lunch twice, coffee 3 times, and one dinner that ended with another kiss in his car that left Emma breathless and wanting more. We're supposed to be taking this slow, Nathaniel murmured against her lips. This is slow. Slow for people who aren't emotionally constipated. Emotionally constipated. That's romantic. I'm full of romance. Nathaniel pulled back, his eyes searching hers. We have the charity gala this weekend. 500 of New York's elite watching our every move. Are you ready? Ready to pretend to be your girlfriend in front of hundreds of people while actually wanting to be your girlfriend for real? Sure, piece of cake. The irony isn't lost on me. What are we doing, Nathaniel? He sighed, his forehead resting against hers. Honestly, I have no idea, but I can't seem to stop. So don't stop. Let's just see where this goes. You make it sound simple. Maybe it is simple, and you're just used to complicated. The charity gala was held at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the entire space transformed into an elegant wonderland of lights and flowers. Emma wore the emerald dress from their shopping trip, feeling like she'd stepped into someone else's life entirely. Nathaniel met her at the entrance, devastating in a tuxedo, and the look in his eyes when he saw her made Emma forget how to breathe. You're staring, she said softly. You're stunning. I'm allowed to stare. Inside, they were immediately swept into a whirlwind of introductions and small talk. Emma met business associates, fellow tech CEOs, celebrities who looked smaller in person, and enough socialites to populate a reality show. Nathaniel kept her close, his hand a constant presence at her back or holding hers, grounding her in the overwhelming chaos. You're doing great, he murmured during a quiet moment. Everyone loves you. Everyone loves the version of me you're paying for. I'm not paying for this version. This is all you. Before Emma could respond, a woman's voice cut through the crowd. Nathaniel Kane. Still breaking hearts, I see. They turned to find a striking brunette in a red dress that probably cost more than Emma's entire wardrobe. Her smile was sharp enough to cut glass. Victoria. Nathaniel's voice went cool. I didn't know you were attending. I wouldn't miss it, especially not when I heard you'd finally found someone willing to put up with your control issues. Victoria's eyes raked over Emma with thinly veiled disdain. How refreshing. She's so... Normal. Emma felt Nathaniel tense beside her. Victoria, this is Emma Sullivan, my girlfriend. Emma. Victoria Ashford, an old acquaintance. Ex-fiancé, actually. Victoria corrected with venom-sweet smile, though I suppose old acquaintance sounds better. Emma's stomach dropped. Ex-fiancé. Nathaniel had never mentioned being engaged before. Victoria seemed to read her surprise with predatory satisfaction. Oh, he didn't tell you? How very like him to omit inconvenient details. Victoria sipped her champagne, her eyes glittering with malice. We were together for 2 years. Engaged for 6 months before I realized Nathaniel is incapable of actually loving anyone. Victoria, that's enough. Nathaniel's voice carried a warning edge. Is it? Or is it fair warning for this poor girl? Victoria turned to Emma directly. He'll make you think he's changing, that you're special, that maybe this time it's real, but eventually you'll realize you're just another item on his to-do list, another box to check. Emma found her voice, anger overriding uncertainty. Thank you for your concern, but I'm perfectly capable of making my own decisions about my relationship. For now. Just wait until he chooses a merger over your anniversary or cancels plans because a board meeting ran late. Wait until you realize everything is conditional with him. That's rich coming from you, Nathaniel said coldly. Since you left me for my competitor the moment his stock price jumped. Victoria's smile turned brittle. I left because you proposed like it was a business deal and acted surprised when I wanted actual emotion. You wanted emotion, or you wanted drama? Because I recall plenty of manufactured crisis designed to get attention, and I recall plenty of distance designed to avoid intimacy. They were attracting attention now. Other guests pretending not to watch while absolutely watching. Emma felt trapped in someone else's history, a spectator to old wounds she didn't understand. This conversation is over, Nathaniel said firmly, taking Emma's hand. Enjoy the gala, Victoria. He guided Emma away through the crowd, his jaw tight with barely controlled anger. They found refuge on a balcony overlooking the museum gardens, the cool night air a relief from the stifling ballroom. I'm sorry, Nathaniel said immediately. I should have warned you about Victoria. You should have mentioned you were engaged before. It was 3 years ago and ended badly. I didn't think it was relevant. How is your ex-fiancé not relevant to our fake relationship that's becoming real? Emma's voice cracked slightly. She basically just confirmed everything you warned me about yourself. Nathaniel turned to face her fully. Victoria and I were a disaster. She wanted the prestige of being engaged to me, and I wanted someone who understood my world. Neither of us actually loved the other. When she left, it was a relief more than a heartbreak. But she wasn't wrong, was she? About you choosing work over relationships? About keeping distance? No. She wasn't wrong. Nathaniel's honesty was painful. With her, I did all of those things. But Emma, I'm trying to be different with you. I know I'm not good at this, but I'm trying. Emma wanted to believe him. Looking into his eyes, she saw genuine regret and something that looked like fear. Fear of losing her, maybe, or fear of repeating his mistakes. Why didn't you love her? Emma asked quietly. Because loving someone means giving them the power to hurt you. I've spent my entire life avoiding that vulnerability. And now? Nathaniel stepped closer, his hands gently framing her face. Now I'm terrified, because you already have that power, and I don't know what to do about it. Emma's heart clenched. Nathaniel, I know this isn't what we agreed to. I know the contract says 6 months and then we walk away. But I don't want to walk away from you. Then don't. It's not that simple. My world is complicated. Victoria's ambush tonight is just a taste of what you'll face if we're really together. The media, the scrutiny, the constant pressure. I'm tougher than I look. I know you are. but you shouldn't have to be this tough just to be with me." Emma pulled his hands down but didn't let go, threading their fingers together. "Stop trying to protect me from yourself. Let me decide what I can handle. And if I hurt you anyway, then I'll deal with it. But at least it will be real hurt, not the careful distance of a business arrangement." Nathaniel looked at her like she was solving a puzzle he'd been struggling with for years. "How are you so brave about this?" "I'm not brave. I'm terrified, but I'm more scared of walking away from something that could be amazing because it might be difficult." He pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her in an embrace that felt nothing like performance and everything like need. "What did I do to deserve you?" Sat at the right table, at the right time. The wrong table, technically. The best wrong table. They stayed like that for a long moment, the gala forgotten, the world narrowed to just the two of them, and the tentative hope of something real. "We should go back inside," Nathaniel said finally. "People will talk if we're gone too long. Let them talk. Brave words from someone who hasn't experienced New York society gossip yet. Then protect me from it." "Isn't that what boyfriends do?" Nathaniel smiled, soft and genuine. "Is that what I am? Your boyfriend? Unless you have a better term." "Partner? Significant other? The person who's falling for you despite his better judgment?" Emma's breath caught. "That last one works." They returned to the gala hand in hand, presenting a united front that made Victoria's smile falter. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of conversations and dances, but Emma was hyper-aware of Nathaniel beside her, the way his thumb stroked her hand, the way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching. "Penny for your thoughts?" she asked during their dance to a slow song. "I'm thinking that this is the first charity gala I've actually enjoyed." "Because of my sparkling personality? Because you make everything else fade into background noise?" Emma felt warmth spread through her chest. "You're getting better at this romance thing. I have good motivation." The song ended, and they were immediately surrounded by well-wishers and business associates. Emma played her part perfectly, but now it didn't feel like playing. Nathaniel's hand at her waist felt protective rather than possessive. His introduction of her as his girlfriend sounded proud rather than perfunctory. Later in the car ride home, Emma curled against Nathaniel's side, exhausted and happy. "Thank you," she said softly. "For what?" "For being honest tonight. About Victoria, about your fears, about what you want." Nathaniel kissed the top of her head. "I'm still figuring out how to do this. How to be someone's boyfriend instead of just someone's business partner." "You're doing fine. Even after Victoria's ambush, especially after. You stood up for me, you were honest about your past, and you told me how you feel. That's all I need." Nathaniel was quiet for a moment. "The contract expires in 5 months." "I know. I don't want it to expire." Emma looked up at him, her heart racing. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that somewhere in the last month, this stopped being an arrangement and started being the most real thing in my life. I'm saying I want to renegotiate our terms." "What kind of terms?" "The kind that don't have an end date. The kind that involve actual dates and real feelings and figuring out how to build something together." Emma felt tears prick her eyes. "Are you asking me to be your actual girlfriend? I'm asking if you'd consider making this arrangement permanent. In the real way, not the contractual way. Nathaniel Kane, are you trying to romance me?" Poorly, apparently, since I'm still using contract terminology. Emma laughed through her tears. "Yes. Yes. Yes, I'll be your real girlfriend. Yes, I want to make this permanent. Yes to all of it." Nathaniel's smile was brilliant and unguarded. He kissed her then, deep and thorough, and Emma felt the last of her reservations melt away. The next few weeks felt like a dream Emma was afraid to wake from. Nathaniel was attentive and thoughtful in ways that contradicted everything Victoria had said about him. He sent flowers to her office, called during his lunch breaks just to hear about her day, and showed up at her apartment with takeout when she was working late on a campaign. "This is dangerous," Emma said one evening, curled up on her couch with Nathaniel, Chinese food containers spread across her coffee table. "What is?" "Getting used to this. To you being like this." Nathaniel set down his chopsticks. "Like what?" "Present. Attentive. Someone I could actually fall in love with." "Could? Does that mean you haven't yet?" Emma's heart pounded. They'd been dancing around the word for weeks, both of them carefully avoiding the full declaration. "I'm trying to be smart about this. And how's that working?" "Terribly. I'm pretty sure I'm already there." Nathaniel went very still. "There? In love with you." Which is ridiculous, since we've only really been dating for a month, and half of that was technically fake. "Emma, you don't have to say it back. I know this is hard for you, and I don't want to pressure you into feelings you're not ready for." Nathaniel pulled her closer, his hand cupping her face with devastating gentleness. "What if I'm already there too? Are you? I don't know what love is supposed to feel like. But I know that I want to hear your voice first thing in the morning. I know that I rearrange my schedule just to have lunch with you. I know that when you smile at me like I'm someone worth knowing, I believe it." He paused, vulnerability raw in his expression. If that's not love, it's the closest I've ever come. Emma kissed him, slow and sweet, pouring everything she felt into the contact. "That's love, Nathaniel." "Then yes. I love you, terribly, completely, in ways that terrify me." "Good. Fear means it matters." They spent the rest of the evening tangled together on her small couch, talking about everything and nothing. Nathaniel told her about his childhood, the lonely years in boarding school, the pressure to be perfect that had shaped his entire life. Emma shared stories about growing up with Sophie, about her mother's battle with cancer, about the dreams she'd put aside to be practical. "What would you do?" Nathaniel asked, "if money wasn't an issue? What would you write?" "I don't know. Maybe a novel. Something about people trying to figure out who they are underneath everyone's expectations." "You should do it. Novels don't pay the bills. They do if you don't have to worry about bills." Nathaniel's tone was casual, but his eyes were serious. "I'm not trying to fix your life or make you dependent on me. But you have options now, Emma. Don't waste them being practical when you could be happy." It was a seductive idea. Emma had been practical her entire adult life, making careful choices based on financial necessity rather than genuine desire. The thought of actually pursuing her writing felt both terrifying and thrilling. "I'll think about it," she promised. "Think hard. Because watching you light up when you talk about stories makes me want to give you the world." Emma's phone buzzed with a call from Sophie. "Sorry, I need to take this. She only calls this late if something's wrong." Nathaniel nodded, giving her space as Emma answered. "Soph? What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. Actually, something's really right." Sophie's voice was bright, with excitement. "I got the research fellowship, the one I applied for with like zero hope. They're giving me a full stipend for next year." "Sophie, that's amazing." Emma felt tears spring to her eyes. "I'm so proud of you. And the stipend covers everything. Tuition, living expenses, even a budget for research materials. You don't have to help me anymore. You can focus on yourself for once." Guilt twisted in Emma's stomach. Sophie didn't know that Emma had already secured the money to help her through Nathaniel's arrangement, money that felt increasingly complicated now that their relationship was real. "We'll talk about it," Emma said, "but congratulations. Seriously. You deserve this." After she hung up, Nathaniel watched her carefully. That sounded like good news with a side of complicated. My sister got a fellowship that covers her expenses, which means the main reason I agreed to our original arrangement no longer exists. Understanding dawned in Nathaniel's eyes. You're wondering if I'll think you were just using me for the money. Were you? At first? Partly, yes. I needed the money, and you were offering it. But, Nathaniel, everything that's happened since then, everything we've become to each other, that has nothing to do with the contract. Nathaniel pulled her back into his arms. I know that, but I also know you're someone who likes to earn her own way. So here's what I propose. The contract continues as agreed. You earn what you were promised because you've fulfilled every term. But what we are to each other exists separately from that. Our relationship isn't conditional on the business arrangement. You've really thought about this. I think about everything involving you. Emma settled against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. I love you. I love you too, even though it terrifies me, especially because it terrifies you. The following week brought new challenges. The media had gotten wind of Nathaniel's relationship, and suddenly Emma found herself in gossip columns and society pages. The coverage ranged from benign curiosity to thinly veiled speculation about her motives. Tech billionaire's mystery girlfriend. Who is Emma Sullivan? From Brooklyn to the boardroom, the Cinderella story of Kane's new love sources questioned timeline of whirlwind romance. Emma tried to ignore it, but the constant attention was wearing. Photographers followed her to work, reporters called her office, and strangers on the internet had opinions about everything from her clothes to her qualifications for dating someone like Nathaniel. I hate this, she admitted one night over dinner at Nathaniel's penthouse. I know it comes with the territory, but feeling like I'm constantly being judged and evaluated is exhausting. Nathaniel's expression was grim. I can have my publicist put out a statement asking for privacy. Will that actually help? Probably not, but it might slow things down. He reached across the table to take her hand. I'm sorry. This is exactly what I was afraid of. My world consuming yours. It's not your fault that people are intrusive. It's my fault that you're exposed to it. Emma squeezed his hand. I knew what I was signing up for. I just need to adjust to being a public person instead of a private one. If it gets to be too much, tell me. We can figure out ways to manage it. That night, Emma stayed over at Nathaniel's place for the first time. His penthouse was spectacular, all floor-to-ceiling windows and modern design. But Emma was more interested in the glimpses of his personal life, books on philosophy and physics, a guitar in the corner that looked well used, photographs of his family tucked into unexpected places. You play? She asked, gesturing to the guitar. Used to. Haven't had much time lately. Play something for me. I'm out of practice. I don't care. Nathaniel picked up the guitar with careful reverence, his fingers finding familiar chords. He played something soft and melancholy, a classical piece that filled the space with unexpected beauty. Emma watched his face transform, the careful control melting into something more open and vulnerable. When he finished, she applauded softly. You're full of surprises. I had to do something at boarding school besides study. Music was my escape. Do you miss it? I didn't think I did. But playing just now, with you listening, that felt good. Emma curled up beside him on the couch. Promise me something. What's that? Don't let your company consume all of you. Keep the parts that make you human, that make you you. Nathaniel set aside the guitar and pulled her close. You make me want to be more than just a CEO. Good, because I fell in love with the man, not the title. 2 months into their real relationship, Emma met Nathaniel's business partner and best friend, James Whitfield. James was everything Nathaniel wasn't. Warm, outgoing, with an easy laugh and immediate charm. "So you're the one who finally cracked the Ice King," James said, shaking Emma's hand with genuine warmth. "I've been waiting years for someone to make Nathaniel act like a human being." "I'm standing right here," Nathaniel said dryly. "I know. It's more fun to talk about you like you're not." James grinned at Emma. "Has he done the thing yet where he tries to schedule your dates in his calendar app? Week 2. Emma confirmed. "I made him delete it." "She also made me promise to leave work at the office when we're together," Nathaniel added. "It's been an adjustment." An adjustment. That's corporate speak for completely foreign concept. James ordered drinks for the table. "Emma, I have to ask, how did you get him to actually commit to a relationship? I've seen him dodge commitment like it's a tax audit. I crashed his attempted transaction with a professional escort and negotiated better terms," Emma said sweetly. James nearly spit out his drink. "I'm sorry, what?" Nathaniel sighed. Long story, involving mistaken identity and Emma's remarkable ability to talk her way into impossible situations. Over dinner, Emma learned more about Nathaniel's history. James and Nathaniel had been roommates at MIT, bonding over late-night coding sessions and a shared vision for revolutionizing cloud infrastructure. Kane Industries had started in their dorm room with borrowed equipment and more ambition than sense. "He was impossible even then," James said fondly. "Brilliant but convinced emotions were inefficient. I once watched him break up with a girlfriend using a PowerPoint presentation. I was 20, Nathaniel protested. And the presentation was very thorough. It had charts, Emma. Charts about compatibility metrics and long-term sustainability projections." Emma laughed despite herself. "Please tell me you've grown since then." "Marginally," Nathaniel admitted, "though I did consider making a presentation about why Emma should date me. What stopped you?" "The realization that she'd probably throw it back in my face and then leave." "Smart man," Emma said. As the evening progressed, Emma saw a different side of Nathaniel. With James, he was more relaxed, quicker to laugh, more willing to be teased. It gave her hope that the walls he'd built weren't permanent, just habits that could be unlearned with the right people. "I like him," Emma said later, back at Nathaniel's penthouse. "James? Everyone likes James. It's annoying. I like that he brings out this version of you. Less CEO, more actual person." Nathaniel pulled her into his arms. "You bring out that version too." "Do I? You make me want to be someone worth knowing beyond my bank account and business achievements." Emma kissed him softly. "You already are someone worth knowing." The next challenge came from an unexpected source. Emma's old ex, the one who'd left her for someone else, showed up at her office with apologies and requests for a second chance. "I made a mistake," Vanessa said, looking polished and successful in a way that made Emma's old insecurities flare. "We were good together, Emma. We could be again." "I'm seeing someone," Emma said firmly. "The billionaire? Please. We both know that's not real. You're probably with him for the money." Anger flared hot in Emma's chest. "You don't know anything about my relationship. I know you're not his usual type. I know he's dated models and heiresses. What makes you think you're more than a temporary diversion?" The words hit old wounds Emma thought she'd healed. Even though she knew Vanessa was lashing out, the doubts crept in. What did make her different from Nathaniel's past? Why would someone like him actually want to be with her long term? That evening, Emma was quieter than usual. Nathaniel noticed immediately. "What's wrong?" "Vanessa showed up today." "My ex." Nathaniel's expression hardened. What did she want? "To get back together, but mainly to make me doubt myself and my relationship with you." "Did it work?" Emma considered lying, then remembered Nathaniel valued honesty. "A little. She pointed out that I'm not your usual type, that you've dated people way more successful and polished than me, Nathaniel set aside his work laptop and gave her his full attention. You want to know why I love you instead of the models and heiresses? I mean, I wouldn't hate an ego boost. Because every one of those past relationships was shallow. Beautiful people playing beautiful roles, saying what they thought I wanted to hear. You argued with me on our first night, called me arrogant and challenged my assumptions. You saw past the money and the title to the person underneath. Lots of people could do that, but they don't. They see dollar signs or status or a stepping stone to something else. You saw me, Emma. The real me. Flaws and walls and emotional damage. And you decided I was worth the effort anyway. Emma felt tears spring to her eyes. I love you. I love you too. And I don't care what your ex or anyone else thinks. You're not a temporary diversion. You're the person I want to build a life with. The certainty in his voice made Emma's doubts melt away. A life? That's pretty serious talk from someone who scheduled dates in his calendar app 2 months ago. I've been known to make rapid strategic pivots when presented with compelling new data. I'm compelling new data? You're the most compelling thing that's ever happened to me. That night, they talked about the future for the first time. Real future, not contract terms or arrangements, but actual plans, where they wanted to live, how they'd balance their careers, what their life might look like together. I want you to meet Sophie, Emma said. Properly, not just a quick introduction. I want her to know who you really are. I'd like that. Fair warning, I'm terrible with younger siblings. I always feel like I'm being interviewed for approval. You are being interviewed. Sophie is incredibly protective of me, as she should be. Nathaniel paused. What if she doesn't approve? Then you'll have to charm her. Lucky for you, you've gotten better at the whole human interaction thing. High praise. They arranged dinner for the following weekend at a restaurant Sophie chose, a cozy Italian place near Columbia. Emma was nervous in a way she hadn't been since the original blind date, wanting desperately for the two most important people in her life to like each other. Sophie arrived first, pulling Emma into a tight hug. Okay, I need details before Prince Charming arrives. Is he really as amazing as you make him sound? More amazing and more complicated. Complicated how? He's brilliant and successful, but also kind of emotionally stunted from a cold childhood. He's learning how to do real relationships, and I'm learning how to navigate his world. It's messy, but good. Messy, but good. I can work with that. Nathaniel arrived exactly on time, looking nervous in a way Emma had never seen. He shook Sophie's hand formally, then seemed to catch himself and offered a genuine smile. It's wonderful to finally meet you properly. Emma talks about you constantly. All good things, I hope, Sophie said, her tone friendly but assessing. Brilliant, dedicated, destined to save the world one pediatric patient at a time. Yes, all good things. Over dinner, Emma watched them interact with growing relief. Sophie asked pointed questions about Nathaniel's intentions and his understanding of Emma's needs. Nathaniel answered with honesty that sometimes made Emma wince, but clearly impressed Sophie. So you hired my sister to be your fake girlfriend? Sophie asked bluntly. Sophie. Emma protested. It's fine, Nathaniel said. Yes, initially I hired someone to fill that role. Emma crashed the meeting by mistake, and we entered into a mutually beneficial arrangement. But somewhere in the process, it stopped being an arrangement and started being the most genuine relationship I've ever had. And the money? Emma said she had extra coming in from consulting work. Emma's face flushed. Soph. I want the truth, Em. Nathaniel looked at Emma, silently asking permission. Emma nodded reluctantly. The arrangement included financial compensation, Nathaniel said carefully, but Emma earned every penny by helping me navigate family obligations and business functions. The money had nothing to do with our decision to make the relationship real. Sophie processed this, her expression unreadable. Finally, she turned to Emma. Are you happy? Genuinely, surprisingly happy. Then that's what matters. Sophie looked at Nathaniel seriously. But if you hurt her, I don't care how much money you have. I will make your life extremely difficult. I would expect nothing less, Nathaniel replied with a small smile. And for what it's worth, I have no intention of hurting her. Emma is the best thing that's happened to me. 4 months into their relationship, Nathaniel asked Emma to move in with him. The conversation happened casually, over breakfast in his kitchen, but the implications were enormous. You're here most nights anyway, Nathaniel reasoned, and your apartment lease is up next month. It makes sense logistically. Logistically, Emma repeated. You're proposing cohabitation based on logistics? Nathaniel paused, setting down his coffee. You're right. Let me try again. He took her hands, his thumb stroking her knuckles. I love waking up next to you. I love seeing your things mixed with mine. I want our life to be shared space, not separate addresses we shuttle between. Move in with me, Emma. Not because it's logical, but because I want you here. Much better. Is that a yes? That's a yes. Moving into the penthouse was surreal. Emma's modest belongings looked tiny in the vast space, but Nathaniel insisted on making room for everything. Her bookshelves fit beside his, her colorful throws brightened his minimalist furniture, and her coffee maker replaced his expensive espresso machine because, as she put it, some of us like coffee that doesn't require an engineering degree. You're changing my space, Nathaniel observed one evening, watching Emma arrange fresh flowers in the living room. Is that a problem? No, I like it. It feels less like a showroom and more like a home. Emma wrapped her arms around him from behind. That's what happens when you let someone actually live with you instead of just visiting. Noted for future reference. Future reference implies there will be other someones. Should I be concerned? Nathaniel turned in her arms, his expression serious. Emma, you're it for me. There's no future reference because there's no one else. Just you. The certainty in his voice made Emma's heart soar. Promise? Promise. Life together developed a comfortable rhythm. Nathaniel still worked too much, but he made effort to be present when he was home. Emma started working on her novel in earnest, using the financial security to pursue her passion instead of just practical paychecks. They cooked together, badly, and ordered in frequently. They argued about temperature settings and weekend plans and which streaming service to cancel. It was ordinary and extraordinary all at once. This is what I missed with Victoria. Nathaniel admitted one lazy Sunday morning, the mundane everyday stuff. She only wanted the glamorous parts of being with me. You actually want to know how my day was. Of course I want to know how your day was. I love you, including the boring parts. My days are never boring. Yesterday you spent 20 minutes explaining server architecture to me. And you actually listened. I actually fell asleep. But I appreciate the effort. Nathaniel pulled her closer, kissing her temple. I love you. I love you too, even when you're boring. The 6-month mark of their original contract arrived with little fanfare. Emma woke to find a document on her nightstand, the contract, stamped fulfilled with a check for the remaining payment. What's this? She asked, finding Nathaniel in the kitchen. Completion of our agreement. You fulfilled every term, including some I didn't know I needed. Nathaniel, we're past the contract. You don't have to pay me anymore. A deal is a deal. You earned this. His expression softened. Besides, I want you to have the security to pursue your dreams without worrying about money. Think of it as investment in your future, not payment for past services. Emma felt tears threaten. You know I'm not with you for your money, right? I know. Which is exactly why I want you to have it. Nathaniel pulled her into his arms. Use it to write your novel, to help Sophie if she needs it, to fund whatever makes you happy. Just please stay with me while you do it. I'm not going anywhere. Good. Because I have something else for you. Nathaniel led her to the living room, where a small box sat on the coffee table. Emma's heart hammered as she recognized the size and shape. Nathaniel, this isn't what you think. Well, it is, but not yet. He opened the box to reveal a stunning ring, a sapphire surrounded by diamonds. This was my grandmother's. She left it to me with instructions to give it to someone who made me believe in love. Emma's breath caught. It's beautiful. I'm not proposing. Not yet. I want to do this right. Want to make sure you're ready for everything that comes with being permanently attached to me. Nathaniel took the ring out, slipping it on her right hand instead of her left. This is a promise that when the time is right, when we're both ready, I'm going to ask you to marry me. And I hope you'll say yes. Tears streamed down Emma's face. Nathaniel Kane, are you promise-ringing me like we're teenagers? Is that a yes to the future proposal? That's a yes to everything. The future proposal, the life together, all of it. Nathaniel kissed her deeply, thoroughly, like he was sealing a vow. I love you, Emma Sullivan. I love you too. That evening they celebrated at Celestia, the restaurant where they'd first met. Emma wore the emerald dress from their first shopping trip, and Nathaniel looked devastating in the same suit he'd worn that first night. 1 year ago, I sat at the wrong table and changed my entire life, Emma said over champagne. Best wrong turn either of us ever made. They toasted to wrong tables and right people, to contracts that became love stories, to futures they were building together. Around them, the city glittered with possibility. What are you thinking? Nathaniel asked, watching Emma gaze out at the skyline. That I came here looking for a $20 an hour secretary job and found something infinitely better. What's that? Someone who sees me, really sees me, underneath all the pretense and performance. Someone who loves me not despite my flaws, but including them. Nathaniel reached across the table, taking her hand, his thumb brushing over the sapphire ring. The feeling is entirely mutual. As they left the restaurant, photographers waited outside, cameras flashing. Emma had gotten better at ignoring them, at focusing on Nathaniel's hand in hers instead of the intrusive questions being shouted. Emma, is it true you're engaged? Nathaniel, when's the wedding? How do you want to handle this? Emma asked quietly. Together, Nathaniel replied simply, everything from here on, we handle together. They walked to the car hand in hand, presenting a united front. Inside, safe from the cameras, Nathaniel pulled Emma close. You okay? Better than okay. I have you, I have my writing, I have a life I actually love instead of just endure. I'm great. Good. Because I have plans for us. What kind of plans? The kind that involve forever. Emma smiled against his chest. I can work with forever. Yeah? Yeah. The car drove through the city streets, carrying them toward a future neither had planned, but both desperately wanted. Emma looked down at the sapphire ring, catching the light from passing street lamps, and felt overwhelming gratitude for the wrong table, the mistaken identity, and the unexpected love that had transformed her entire world. Nathaniel? Thank you. For what? For taking a chance on me. For letting me past your walls. For loving me even though it terrifies you. Nathaniel kissed the top of her head. Thank you for seeing something worth loving underneath all the damage. Always. They arrived at the penthouse, their home, and stepped into the life they were building together. It wasn't perfect. Nathaniel still worked too much. Emma still had moments of insecurity, and they were both still learning how to be partners instead of independent operators. But it was real, messy, and complicated, and absolutely right. As Emma fell asleep that night, wrapped in Nathaniel's arms, she thought about the woman who'd walked into the wrong restaurant a year ago, that Emma had been looking for stability and safety, for a way to solve her financial problems and help her sister. Instead, she'd found a man who challenged her to dream bigger, to believe she deserved more than just getting by. She'd found a love that wasn't perfect but was perfectly hers. And in the morning, she'd wake up and keep building that love, one day at a time, for as long as forever lasted. 6 months after moving in together, Nathaniel surprised Emma with a weekend trip to a vineyard in Napa Valley. They spent their days touring wineries and their evenings watching sunsets paint the sky in shades of gold and rose. "This is perfect," Emma sighed, curled up against Nathaniel on a private terrace overlooking endless rows of grapevines. "It's about to get better." Before Emma could ask what he meant, Nathaniel shifted, moving from the bench to kneel on one knee. Her heart stopped entirely. "Emma Sullivan, 18 months ago you walked into my life by complete accident. You were supposed to be someone else, and I was supposed to keep everything professional and distant. But you refused to be what I expected." Nathaniel's voice was steady, but his hands trembled slightly as he pulled out a ring box. "You challenged me, changed me, and made me believe I was capable of love. You turned a business transaction into the greatest relationship of my life. I know I'm not easy to love. I know I still sometimes choose work over presence, logic over emotion. But I promise to keep trying, keep growing, keep being someone worthy of you." Tears streamed down Emma's face as Nathaniel opened the box, revealing a stunning engagement ring that caught the sunset light. "Will you marry me? For real this time? With no contracts or conditions, just love and commitment, and the promise of a future together?" "Yes," Emma managed through tears. "Yes. Absolutely yes." Nathaniel slipped the ring onto her finger, then stood and kissed her like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning. Around them, other guests who'd been discreetly watching broke into applause, but Emma barely heard them. There was only Nathaniel, his arms around her, and the overwhelming joy of this moment. "I love you," she whispered against his lips. "I love you too. So much it still terrifies me." Good. Fear keeps things interesting. That night, they celebrated with champagne and dancing under the stars. Nathaniel was more relaxed than Emma had ever seen him, his usual control replaced with genuine happiness. "When did you know?" Emma asked as they swayed to music from the vineyard speakers. "That you wanted to marry me?" "Probably the first night, if I'm honest. But I knew for certain about 3 months ago." "What happened 3 months ago?" "You were sick with the flu, absolutely miserable, and I came home to find you'd still made dinner, because you knew I'd had a stressful day. You put my needs above your own comfort, not because you had to, but because you wanted to." Nathaniel's voice softened. "That's when I realized I wanted to spend my life taking care of you, the way you take care of me." Emma felt fresh tears threaten. That's incredibly romantic for someone who used to propose with PowerPoint presentations. "You're a good influence." They flew back to New York the next day, and Emma immediately called Sophie to share the news. Her sister's squeal of excitement was so loud Nathaniel could hear it across the room. "I need details. Tell me everything." Emma recounted the proposal while Nathaniel worked on his laptop, pretending not to listen, but smiling at her enthusiastic retelling. "He's really changed," Sophie observed. "The man you described when you first met and the man who just gave you a sunset proposal are completely different people." "He was always this person underneath," Emma said. "He just needed someone to believe it." Planning the wedding became Emma's new project. She wanted something intimate, personal, Not the society spectacle Nathaniel's mother initially suggested. After several diplomatic negotiations, they settled on a ceremony at the vineyard where Nathaniel proposed, with just close family and friends. "Your mother is going to hate this," Emma said, reviewing the guest list that topped out at 50 people. "My mother will survive. This day is about us, not her social calendar. Look at you, setting boundaries with family. I've learned from the best. The months leading up to the wedding were chaotic, but joyful." Emma finished her novel manuscript and sent it to agents, receiving interest that both thrilled and terrified her. Nathaniel supported her completely, reading drafts and offering feedback that was surprisingly insightful. "You're good at this," Emma said after he'd pointed out a plot hole she'd missed. "I read a lot. And I know you. This character doesn't feel like you wrote her." Emma looked at the passage he'd marked. He was right. The female lead was too passive, too willing to accept limitations. She should fight harder. She should fight like you do. Emma revised the character, giving her Emma's own fire and determination. The result was stronger, more authentic. When she finally got an offer from a literary agent, she cried happy tears in Nathaniel's arms. "I'm so proud of you," he murmured into her hair. "This is happening because of you. Because you gave me the security to pursue this. No, this is happening because you're talented and hard-working." I just removed some obstacles. The week before the wedding, Nathaniel's family descended on Napa for the celebration. Catherine had softened considerably toward Emma, especially after learning about the novel deal. Olivia and Charlotte were enthusiastic bridesmaids, and even Richard seemed genuinely happy for his son. "You've been good for him," Richard said during a quiet moment on the terrace. "I wasn't sure he'd ever let someone in. He's been good for me too. We balance each other. That's what the best marriages do." Richard paused. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry, Catherine, and I didn't model that for him growing up. We let duty override affection. You're modeling it now. That's what matters." The wedding day arrived with perfect weather and perfect chaos. Emma's dress was a simple, elegant design that made her feel beautiful without being overdone. Sophie helped with her hair while Olivia managed the flowers and Charlotte coordinated with the caterers. "Ready?" Sophie asked, adjusting Emma's veil. "Beyond ready. I've been ready since the wrong table." The ceremony was held at sunset, the same time of day Nathaniel had proposed. Emma walked down the aisle to find Nathaniel waiting with an expression of such open love that she nearly stumbled. James stood as best man, grinning like he'd personally orchestrated the whole romance. The officiant asked the traditional questions, but Emma barely heard them. She was too focused on Nathaniel, on the way his hands held hers so carefully, on the emotion shining in his usually controlled eyes. "I, Emma, take you, Nathaniel, to be my husband," she said clearly. "I promise to challenge you when you're too focused on logic, to support you when vulnerability feels too hard, and to love you through every complicated, messy, beautiful moment of our lives together." Nathaniel's voice was husky with emotion. "I, Nathaniel, take you, Emma, to be my wife. I promise to keep choosing you over work, people over profits, and love over fear. I promise to keep growing, keep trying, keep being someone worthy of the incredible gift of your love." When the officiant pronounced them married, Nathaniel kissed Emma with a thoroughness that made their guests cheer and made Emma forget everything except the feeling of his arms around her and the knowledge that this was just the beginning. The reception was everything Emma had dreamed of, intimate, joyful, filled with people who genuinely cared about them rather than social obligations. She danced with Nathaniel, with Sophie, with James, and even with Richard, who admitted he'd never been happier to be proven wrong about his son's capacity for love. To Emma and Nathaniel, James toasted during dinner, who proved that sometimes the best relationships start with absolutely terrible planning and complete accidents. May your marriage be slightly better organized. Everyone laughed, Nathaniel loudest of all. He looked transformed, his usual formality replaced with genuine happiness that made him seem years younger. "Thank you," he whispered to Emma during their first dance, "for taking a chance on a man who scheduled dates in his calendar app. Thank you for being willing to learn a better way. Every day with you is better." Later that evening, after the cake was cut and the last dance finished, Emma and Nathaniel slipped away to their vineyard suite. Emma kicked off her heels with relief, while Nathaniel loosened his tie. "We're married," Emma said, the reality finally sinking in. "Legally, emotionally, and irrevocably married," Nathaniel confirmed. "Having second thoughts?" "Only about these shoes. The marriage part I'm completely certain about." Nathaniel pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers. "I never thought I'd have this. A real partnership. Someone who knows all my flaws and loves me anyway. I never thought I'd find someone who'd encourage my dreams instead of asking me to be practical." Emma kissed him softly. "We're good together. We're better than good. We're everything I didn't know I needed." They spent their honeymoon traveling through Italy, eating too much pasta and exploring ancient cities hand in hand. Nathaniel left his laptop behind, a monumental decision that Emma appreciated more than any gift. He was fully present, engaged, interested in everything they saw and experienced together. "This is nice," Emma said one evening in Rome, watching the sunset paint the Colosseum in golden light. "Just nice?" "Okay. Incredibly romantic and perfect. Better? Much better. You know what's funny? If I'd found the right table that night, if I'd met boring David the accountant instead of you, I'd probably be living a completely different life right now." Nathaniel pulled her closer. "Boring David would have lost you eventually. You're too extraordinary for boring. I was pretty boring before I met you. You were never boring. You just hadn't found the right context to shine in." They returned to New York as Mr. and Mrs. Kane, ready to build their life together. Emma's novel got published 8 months later to positive reviews, earning enough that she could write full-time if she chose. Nathaniel made partner with James in a new venture that focused on ethical tech development, balancing profit with purpose. "Look at us," Emma said one evening, curled up on their couch, while Nathaniel read her latest manuscript draft. "Living actual dreams instead of just surviving. We make a good team. The best team." A year into their marriage, Emma found out she was pregnant. She told Nathaniel over breakfast, watching his face cycle through shock, joy, and terror in rapid succession. "We're having a baby? We're having a baby. Are you okay?" "I'm terrified. I have no idea how to be a father. You didn't know how to be a boyfriend either. And you figured that out." Nathaniel pulled her into his arms, his hand settling protectively over her still flat stomach. "A baby. Our baby. Are you happy?" "Terrified and happy. Is that allowed?" That's parenthood in a nutshell from what I hear. Their daughter, Grace Catherine Kane, was born on a snowy February morning. Nathaniel cried when he held her for the first time, all his careful control shattered by the tiny person in his arms. "She's perfect," he whispered, tears streaming down his face. "She has your eyes," Emma said from the hospital bed. "And your nose. And hopefully your kindness. And hopefully your brilliance. We're going to mess this up sometimes," Nathaniel said, not taking his eyes off Grace. "Probably. But we'll mess it up together, and we'll love her through it." Catherine and Richard visited later that day, both of them softening completely at the sight of their granddaughter. "She's beautiful," Catherine said, her own eyes misty. "Congratulations, both of you. Bringing Grace home was overwhelming and wonderful. Nathaniel took paternity leave, unheard of for a CEO, but he insisted. He changed diapers with the same focused intensity he applied to business deals, researched sleep schedules like they were market trends, and read parenting books cover to cover. "You know there's no right answer to most of this, right?" Emma asked one night during a 3am feeding. "I know, but I want to be good at it anyway. You already are good at it. Look at how she calms down when you hold her." Nathaniel looked down at Grace, who was indeed falling asleep against his chest. "She trusts me. Of course she does. You're her dad." "I'm her dad," Nathaniel repeated, wonder in his voice. "That's still surreal. Welcome to parenthood. Everything is surreal and nothing makes sense, but somehow it's perfect anyway." 5 years later, Emma stood in their home office watching Nathaniel play with Grace in the garden below. Their daughter was chasing butterflies while Nathaniel pretended to catch them, his serious CEO persona completely abandoned in favor of silly dad mode. Sophie joined her at the window, her own daughter on her hip. "Hard to believe this all started with you sitting at the wrong table. Best mistake I ever made." "No regrets? About the whole arrangement, the deception, any of it?" Emma thought about it honestly. "No regrets. The beginning was unconventional, sure, but it got us here, to this life, to this family. I wouldn't change anything. Even the part where you basically agreed to be a paid companion? Even that. Because it taught me that sometimes the wrong path leads to exactly the right place." Emma smiled as Nathaniel lifted Grace onto his shoulders, both of them laughing. And sometimes a business arrangement becomes the greatest love story of your life. "You're such a romantic." I learned from experience. That evening, after Grace was asleep and the house was quiet, Emma and Nathaniel sat on their terrace overlooking the city. The skyline glittered with possibility, just like it had that first night. "Happy?" Nathaniel asked, pulling Emma close. "Incredibly." "You? More than I ever thought possible." He kissed her temple. "Thank you." "For what?" "For crashing my arrangement with a professional escort. For negotiating better terms than she would have. For loving me before you knew about the money. For making me believe I was capable of this." He gestured to encompass their life, their home, their family. "Thank you for taking a chance on the woman at the wrong table. Best business decision I ever made. It stopped being business pretty quickly. It was never really business, not from the moment you called me arrogant." Emma laughed, settling deeper into his embrace. Below them, the city moved and breathed, full of people living their own stories, finding their own wrong tables that would lead to right places. "I love you," Emma said quietly. "I love you too. Always and forever. Even when I'm boring? You could never be boring. You're the woman who turned a fake relationship into a real marriage, who challenged a billionaire CEO to be more human, who built a life out of an accidental meeting. We built a life. Together." Together, Nathaniel agreed. The best way to do anything. They sat in comfortable silence, two people who'd found each other in the most unlikely way and built something beautiful from it. The contract that brought them together was long forgotten, replaced by wedding vows and shared dreams, and the kind of love that grew stronger with every passing day. And if sometimes Emma thought about that night at Celestia, about the wrong table and the mysterious billionaire who'd played along, she smiled, because that wrong turn had led her exactly where she needed to be. Home. The end. Don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10 in the comments. And if you enjoyed this, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss our next emotional story. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.